Hello, these are the notes for multiples. Let's start with our vocabulary. A multiple is the product of a given whole number and another whole number. So in other words, multiples of 2. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Because 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 3 is 6, and so on. Common multiple is a multiple that 2 or more numbers share. And finally, least common multiple is the lowest number that 2 or more numbers share. Okay? We're looking for the least common multiple instead of the greatest common multiple because there is no such thing as a greatest common multiple. Multiples go on and on and on forever. There is never an ending. So when we're finding the least common multiple, it is similar to the greatest common factor in that we have two options that we're going to be looking at. The first option is the list method. We're going to list the multiples of each number, and we're going to stop when we find a common one. So, multiples of 16. 16 times 1 is 16. 16 times 2 is 32. 16 times 3 is 48. 16 times 4 is 64. And 16 times 5 is 80. Why did I choose to stop there? I'm just going to give you, I like to do about the first 5. Okay, I might need more, but I'm going to go with the first 5. Then, 24 times 1 is 24. 24 times 2 is 48. I could actually stop here because I've already found my least common multiple, okay, which is 48. If I continued, I'll find other common multiples, but we only wanted to find the least common multiple. Option number 2 is the ladder method. Okay? All of the steps are similar to finding the greatest common factor except the last step. So in other words, if I'm finding the lowest common multiple, or least common multiple for 16 and 24, I'm going to factor out a number. Okay? I chose 4. Okay? Step number 2, write the factor pair under the original. So 4 times 4 gives us 16. 4 times 6 gives us 24. Okay? Once again, I'm going to pull out a factor of 4 and 6. 2 is a common factor. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay? I have no other common factors. Here is the one step that is different. I'm going to multiply all of my outside numbers. Remember, when I did my greatest common factor, I only did these two and we made a G. If we take our outside numbers and circle it like that, it makes an L, and I'm finding my LCM. So 4 times 2 times 2 times 3 gives me 48. Okay? Just like before, we're going to practice because I didn't have to choose a 4. I could have factored out a different number. Maybe I look at these two numbers and go, oh, you know what? 8 is a common factor. 8 times 2 gives me 16. 8 times 3 gives me 24. 2 and 3 don't share a factor, so now I'm down to step number 4, which is to multiply my outside numbers. I'm going to circle those so I make it obvious that I have an L. And 8 times 2 times 3. I can multiply in any order, so I'm going to go 2 times 3 is 6, and 6 times 8 is 48. So once again, I have found that the least common multiple is 48. So we're going to do some practice, but once again, you want to choose the most efficient method for finding the least common multiple. We have two options. One might be more efficient depending on the numbers. So I want you to pause it here, and I want you to look at these numbers and decide which method do I think is the most efficient. Go ahead and pause and solve. Okay, so I'm going to look at 10 and 15. Okay, and I might go, you know what, I know these multiples pretty easy. So I'm going to say 10, 20, 30, and count up by tens, maybe go to 40. And I know that 15 and then 30 So I know that 30 is my least common multiple. So that way was pretty efficient. Okay, I could have said, okay, they share a 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 3 is 15. There's nothing left here. So I'm going to do 5 times 2 times 3, which is also 30. So I think with these two numbers, either method is efficient. Once again, we get here to 28 and 70. Okay, I am not very sure of my 28 times tables. I could figure out my 70s because I could just do 7 times 1. But because I don't know them, I'm going to use my ladder method. Okay, because I know once again that 7 is a factor of both. 7 times 4 is 28. 7 times 10 is 70. 4 and 10 are even. They share 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 5 is 10. They don't share any factors. So now I'm going to multiply this. I'm doing my L for LCM. 7 times 2 times 2 times 5. Okay, I could do 14 times 2 is 28 times 5. Yeah, don't really know that. But if I multiply those two together, I get 10. Okay, so then 7 times 2 is 14. 14 times 10 is 140. So that is our LCM. Finally, 36 and 60. Again, I could probably list my multiples of 60 pretty easily. My multiples of 36, I'm not too strong on. So I'm going to choose, once again, the ladder method for this. Say they both have 6. 6 times 6 is 36. 6 times 10 gives me 60. They're both even. I definitely know they share a 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 2 times 5 gives me 10. I cannot pull out a factor of 3 and 5. So I'm doing my LCM. So I'm going to make the L. 6 times 2 times 3 times 5. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at these numbers. And I'm going to say 6 times 5 is 30. So I use these two numbers, 6 and the 5. And then 2 times 3 is 6. So I'm left with 30 times 6, which is 180, which is my LCM.